All along, I've only been looking at one duck, but there's millions of ducks in here. In 1534, Douglas Winegar of Hawkhurst, England, gave his grandmother roses for her birthday. He picked them himself, walked them over to her. She was happy. Boom, 145 points. Now, here we go. In 2009, Doug Ewing of Skaggsville, Maryland, also gave his grandmother a dozen roses, but he lost 4 points. Why? Because he ordered roses using a cell phone that was made in a sweatshop. The flowers were grown with toxic pesticides, picked by exploited migrant workers, delivered from thousands of miles away, which created a massive carbon footprint, and his money went to a billionaire racist CEO who sends his female employees pictures of his genitals. Woo!
That is a very odd thing to cheer.
I want to get right into The Good Place from the very first second, because I've been thinking from when I first heard it in the episode, what would heaven smell like for me? If the air in heaven smells exactly like my favorite things in the world that just fills me with joy and hope every time I inhale, what would that be? And I've been thinking about it. I think I have my answer. Do you have any ideas?
I have some thoughts. Let's hear yours, Zach.
Well, one of them would be half of Jason's thing, and good luck guessing if it's the sports one or the drugs one. And the other half would be, it would smell like the feeling I get when I complete all seasons of a TV show on DVD. All the time. I would always feel that scratch of relief when you put the last thing on the shelf of what you're collecting at the time.
I like that. Mine would probably be...
Not like the DVD collection is complete. Just this TV show is complete. So there's still more. But that
exactly.
It's like a good pee.
Yeah, I love the feeling of when I finish
Completion,
an anime
really.
And I like score it and I look at the score and I look at how it affects my mean average. The wafting smell of recreationally vaporized or combusted product thick in the air. And maybe like the smell of some good food. I'm trying to think what food though, smell makes me like the most just sopping.
I almost feel though,
mushiness.
to give an aside to your scent, I feel like you wouldn't want the same food forever. So maybe just saying good food is good enough because it would change.
Because I'm not a creature of habit. I like to mix it up.
I do too.
That's
you know me.
Well
I'll take an entire menu into consideration before I even think about what I might like.
You will
to have.
ask the opinions of every man, woman, child, and animal in the place. Hey, what do you think's good here? The 4-year-old says, ah!
I feel like the 1 or 2 times I've done that in the 10 times we've shared a meal together has painted this weird puppy dog figure in your eyes of me.
It was one time in particular.
It was at Disney World.
That wasn't even the one that got me, Zach.
Huh.
The one that got me was
at the
during
Applebee's. I just wanted to know what was
horror
good.
nights, asking somebody who seasonally works here.
It was like the potato
which
stand.
Special edition item, the first night of its existence, was best.
I don't think first night of its existence.
I don't know. I just, dramatic
I don't know where that
effect.
came
I'm building
from.
it up. I'm building up the
I just wanted to
story,
know
Zach. Come
which seasoned sauced potato was best. And he said, I work until 2 a.m. tonight. Yeah. Sorry for having a good time.
To which he replied to Zach, good morning to you too.
Well, you should tell that story since we've referenced it a bunch of times real quick.
Have we not told that on this show?
I don't think so. Welcome to Into the Time Knife, a Good Place Rewatch. I'm so glad you've joined us. Hi, everyone. I'm Zach, and I've never had a reason to be suspicious of anyone.
Nice. I'm Steven, and I'm going to try and shake my fist at you. Dang it. That's a funny bit.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about The Good Place. We're going to talk about our patrons. I'll mention the patrons first. Everyone, we wouldn't be able to bring you this show talking about The Good Place every week and beyond without the people at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. Those people at the $10 level and up that support us every week are Mary Baker Budisa, Danny M. Lugo, Justin Fortier, Lil S. Haker, and the elusive, illustrious, voluptuous Sarah M.
Street's been real quiet, Sarah M.
They have been.
Are you still getting hammered by porn bots, Zach?
Hammered is a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much, but it does still happen.
I had a porn bot phase where they were just all over me. And you know how I got rid of them?
Stopped looking at porn on that platform?
Yeah, it really helped.
Is that what you were going to say?
No, I was going to say I just, showed them that my bank account had $0. I showed them I had maxed out on my credit cards. I called the phone number I had, although it didn't sound like a Chrissy and sounded much more like a Slavic. And, he was really aggressive on the phone, and he said that if I ever wanted to see my prized family pet again, then I needed to sell a kidney or something. So I did. And then they stopped following me. They stopped liking my posts. They stopped showing up at my house.
You lost me somewhere in there, but where you did get me was the thought that I should just start sending them a picture of my overdrawn credit card or of my $5 savings account.
Like open up your wallet and put a little tumbleweed
Cobweb.
in there. Yeah.
Tumbleweed.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all those people. If you want to get more content from us every week, you can get this show early, a week early, every single week. You can also get You Can't Diss a pre-show, our super fun kind of talk radio style pre-show that we do live every week before we record the podcast, and our frequent That 70s Show Rewatch podcast that we're about to start doing every week again, The Basement. So if you're a fan of That 70s Show and kind of want to overlook a lot of reasons not to like that show right now, patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast is the place to find The Basement and everything else we do. Steven, you paint the picture for them. We reference this moment at Disney World all the time. It's an inside joke that I feel like we should let them in on so we can just reference it freely.
We've told this story, haven't we?
No, you've just said that.
So,
well, excuse me.
Zachary and I are having
Maybe
a lovely
pre-show.
morning.
Our first
Was this our first one?
Yeah. There might be people that listen to this
so
podcast
funny.
that don't know that Steven and I went on a week and a half long Disney World
Trip to Florida.
vacation where we stayed in a party mansion, just the two of us. Just the
There
two
were
of us.
4 bedrooms and 11 beds in that place for just us. There was a whole pool. You could fit quite literally 2 families in this home, and Zach and I occupied it ourselves and had a ball. It was great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, a lot of times what comes out about this trip these days are the little we got annoyed with each other over the course of a week and a half that made some funny stories. But it truly was I can't afford to do something like that anymore. I don't know how I ever did then, and it was pretty amazing.
Got $14,000 of credit card debt.
To be with my best bud on some gummies, riding Splash Mountain and meeting Goofy and doing this story that Steven's gonna tell.
It was great. So we get there, and Zach's a coffee boy. So so we're gonna stop and get a good cup of Joe.
You're already
maybe
wrong.
A little snacky.
You're already wrong.
Was this after we were already in the park? This was our first food stop.
I just want to know. This is where you're wrong. Steven likes to. This is a can of worms. Steven likes to tell it as if every day Steven's rip-raring, excited little kid, never been to Disney World to ride the first ride. And I say,
True.
Hold on, Daddy's got to get his coffee fix. Which that is not the case. Most of the Disney World parks have a coffee shop outside the gate while you're waiting for the park to open.
And we went to them.
So I already had my coffee. We went right to a ride. We rode Splash Mountain. And then after that, we're kind of having a moment when we're okay, we rushed to the first ride. It's really cool. We're starting to feel the vibes. There's a churro stand 10 feet away.
Yeah.
It's the first morning at Disney World. I'm going to have a churro at 10 a.m. because I'm on vacation. It was not, Steven, stop having fun. I need my
get out of that line
latte
right now. I need my coffee. The Today Show Cafe was a little bit that.
I'm no monster. But we had fast passes. There was no rush.
At Universal, it's true. So we go to this stand, and did you order first? Or did I go first?
I have no idea.
Well, regardless, there was a woman sitting at the stand.
important.
She was a little bit older woman, African American. So
don't see why that's relevant
my
to the
element,
story, Steven.
It's
wow,
relevant,
what a world
Zach,
you live in.
Because it will make more sense why.
Because I'm a white boy.
Yes, and Zach goes up, and when Zach orders, which he's more within his rights to do, he says his order. He normally what I observed is Zach starts his order with "I want this to let the person know what he is wanting.
Now, again, I feel like you've painted a picture of myself based off this one interaction. You better believe after this, I've always started every interaction with a wait staff employee with, "Hi, how are you doing?" Mm-hmm. Cool. I'll have the
Give me the.
No, I feel like I've gotten a lot better.
You've learned from this experience.
But that also just comes with becoming more of an adult.
Sure. I don't know. From the time that I was allowed to speak to who I was ordering from, I was taught to say, "Hello, may I please have?"
So really,
how
it's
I
my
was taught to order.
parents' fault.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because you were raised in a
I'll try
white
to
home.
stop butting in.
But Zach goes and he
no
says,
monster people.
"I want a churro and a cup of coffee," or something along those lines. And she says, "Well, good morning to you too." At that moment, I saw all the life leave Zach's body.
Oh,
as he
absolutely.
was now being confronted by a Disney black woman, which
Yes.
is a powerful combination.
And of course, because I meant no harm.
Yeah,
I meant
it wasn't
no-
malicious.
I meant no. I was absolutely probably going to make small talk and say thank you and all that. But I also completely get why she was like, "Oh, well, okay, hi, good morning. It's the beginning of my day too."
Yeah.
I'm here. And also, on the other hand, I believe this woman should be fired. You think it's the Disney way?
It's not If this was a Chick-fil-A, she'd be put to task.
Well, honestly, and this is where I'm different from most white people, I would never complain about a situation like that. I took the lesson from that I needed to. But she probably isn't supposed to talk to people like that. And if somebody had said something and gotten upset, she probably would have at least gotten a talking to. It's Disney World. You think they have less strict rules than the Chick-fil-A? That's
Yes.
not true.
All I'm saying is I have smoked weed inside of Disney World. I have not smoked weed inside of Chick-fil-A.
We did not inside of Disney World.
We had pins.
Did we inside of Disney World?
Yeah.
Did we smoke weed inside of
Because
Disney World?
that's
Welcome
why
to
I
the
carry
show,
my
everybody.
bag every time.
I don't think we have time really to talk about anything else now before we get into the good place. I did want to mention, so I'll let you mention something too if you have, that I went to that showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I was excited to hear about it. You looked great.
Thank you. Lil and I went all out, and I didn't even get my entire outfit really captured. I had a corset on, I had booty boy like leather shorts on, I had fishnets, and I walked in high heels the entire time, like up all the parking garage stairs into my seat and everything. And Lil pretty much wore the same thing, and we both had boas, and we did our makeup like from a certain moment in the movie, and we did them kind of mirroring each other. And it was at the same theater that we see a lot of Broadway shows. So
Nice.
it wasn't just any midnight screening of Rocky Horror. It was a huge screen with blasting sound with 1,000 people. And one of the coolest
so
things,
cool.
two of the coolest things about this is that in each stop on the movie's touring with Barry Bostwick, who originally played Brad, and like the president of the Rocky Horror Fan Club, who's been doing it since the
cool.
80s. And they like open the movie and they tour, and it's probably a super cheap tour to put on because in every stop they find a local established shadow cast and they let them come perform on this massive stage in front of thousands of people.
That's cool.
So it was this shadow cast from Indy. And I just can't imagine how cool it would be to get the call that like, hey, the movie's going on tour. Would you perform at this theater, do your thing at this level? That must have been so exhilarating for those people. And it made for a really cool, like it was in this big thing. It was this big ticketed event, but it still had all the like ragtag energy, regular people stuff the Rocky Horror has.
Now, like I said, I've never been to one of these shows before. They show
Yes.
the movie while they're acting it out on the stage.
Yes,
right? Or is
and
it
they
just them
don't
acting on the
talk.
stage?
They just like kind of mime across it.
Oh, that's fun.
And one of the things about Rocky Horror, much like The Room, which would go on to do it, is there's like scripts of the callbacks and specific things that you yell at specific points of the movie. And this cast did something that I'd never seen before where they would also yell some of the callbacks.
That's cool.
Which I thought was fun. So yeah, before the movie, they do a costume contest. And first
fun.
they say in the microphone, hey, everyone that we wrote CC on your wrist, come up. And we're like, we didn't see anybody. Nobody, like, we did this costume, and I feel like we just didn't run into the people, and they would have, like, let us come up. And also, usually at Rocky Horror, you buy prop bags because there's props for certain moments. And they said in the beginning that there was a mix-up with the prop bags, so there was no prop bags. But then when people started going up with costumes, we'd noticed that, like, the people kept coming and coming and coming on stage, just coming all over the stage.
Yeah,
that there were, like, 100 people. So towards the end, we were like, we're standing up, we're going and getting on stage. So for a couple minutes, I got to go on stage at the same stage where I see Broadway shows and get the perspective of what it's like to see 1,000 people.
That's really
in
cool.
3 layers. Obviously, I wasn't performing or anything, but for a second,
Well, you did take the mic and start to sing.
Yes, I did. I did the peanut bar rap from Community.
Nice.
I'm the type of person I'm going to look all around and appreciate that there's this huge audience right now. And that was a really cool experience. And now every time I see one of those shows there, like, I've been on that stage.
That's so cool.
And then the movie was super fun. Barry Bostwick's thing, I could tell that every word of it has to be the same exact thing every time. It felt so rehearsed, every bit of it. He'd be like, well, I remember my good friend Susan Sarandon and I used to say, let's do the time warp again. Am I right, people? But of course, we all went crazy. And then even when the guy from the fan club came out and did a Q&A with him, I could tell that was a rehearsed bit that's the same every time. The questions and the answers. It was too fast and like a two-man comedy routine to not be what they do every night. So that was a little funny. But that's the cutest part was at the end. The last question was, Barry, how do you feel about your song? He has a song that was cut from the movie. How do you feel about your song that was cut from the movie? And he sang a couple bars of it.
That's cool.
76-year-old Barry Bostwick, and it was cute and wholesome.
That's super cute. That's really cool.
It was
Have
a
you
really
seen
fun
the
experience.
Bob's Burgers episode that references the
Oh, yeah.
Rocky Horror? That's a cute one. It's really cute.
I do have to say, the last thing I have to say, I've been such a big Rocky Horror fan since I was like 14.
Yeah.
When I was a closeted kid that was very self-conscious about the things that made me different from other people. And then a little bit older, at 16 in high school, I was confident enough to go to a Rocky Horror screening, but never thought I'd be confident enough to dress up in that way at one.
Yeah.
To a couple years later, being asked to be in one as Brad, and because I couldn't turn that down, having to get comfortable putting those things on and like being in my underwear, to now feeling totally comfortable dressing up that way. Like, I could get emotional talking about it. Just the way that I am no longer in any way, like, the things that make me strange, I appreciate them. Even if other people don't get them or don't like them, I like them now. And that is some, like, huge growth. And that night was, like, I could feel it and I could see it. And there was such a thread in my life that movie has. And it was a really cool moment. It was a lot of fun. Now
well, knowing how much it meant to you, seeing, you guys with like your outfits and how good you guys looked, I thought it was really awesome. It made me very happy as your friend for you to get to experience something like that. Because I know where we come from, like the mere thought of that would have been like spine chilling.
Well, think about the kid from our high school that did do makeup and drag and how that was
and how that was perceived. So I'm just proud of you and really happy for you, buddy.
I keep saying I'm done. I've got to say one last thing, because then the next day I was at Meijer shopping, and a guy that I hadn't seen in 10 years that I worked at Family Video with, who's like this dude bro, like barber type. Like when you think of a white guy barber with tattoos, exactly that kind of guy. I see him, and I always do not try to interact with people, and I look the other way, and I hear Zach. And I turn around, and he's like, it's me, Sanson. Shout out Sanson. Do you remember me? And I was like, yeah, I remember you, Sanson. Hi. His kids were there. We said, hi, hello. And then he said, I saw you last night, by the way. And I said, where? Because I'm in a different world now. And he's like, where do you think? At Rocky Horror. And for a second, I'm like, oh, shit, you did? You saw me at Rocky Horror? He was like, yeah, I was a couple rows behind you. And then he kept talking, and he said, when you worked at Family Video, I don't know exactly how to take this, but he said, when we worked at Family Video, we kind of thought you'd be the guy who would, like, open up and do stuff like this. But then he went on and said, I'm really proud of you that you did.
That's
just
awesome.
Some random stranger to me that I haven't seen in 10 years. That was cool, too. So shout out Sanson the barber.
To which you promptly grabbed him by his shirt collar and said, now listen here, I'm a straight white man, don't you forget it. Then threw him to the ground and said, this is for a candy bar, and flipped his kid a quarter.
We tussled, we kissed, the kids
Yeah.
cried. Yeah. How was your week, Steven? Do you have anything you want to talk about?
It's been good. You know, I've been binging One Piece. Danny's sister was in town.
Which is also
for the
really a big
weekend.
part of your personal growth story.
It is, you know. But it's been good. I've been enjoying it. It's been a busy week. It's a very busy time at work for me right now. But, you know, it's all in the pursuit of fun and love, man. Peace
Fun and love. Peace and love, man. Is that all you
Vibes.
got? You want to talk
That's all
about
I
The Good
got.
Place? Okay, let's
Yeah,
talk about The Good Place. We're here to talk about the 11th chapter of Season 3.
Mhm.
By my count, Season 3, Episode 11. This is
Chapter 11, episode 10. But thanks.
Chapter 37, The Book of Dougs. We're here to talk about it. This episode is directed by a one-timer here at The Good Place, Ken
Heyo, hit it and quit it.
Whittingham.
More like Ken hit it and Quittingham.
Maybe
Am I
this
right?
guy isn't British, but I can't see this name not think Ken Whittingham.
Whittingham.
Whittingham. So
Whittingham.
this guy is a super storied, long time running television director who on his IMDb had 97 directing credits. And I
Wow.
always like write down the ones that super stand out to me. And it's a long list and I left out a lot this time. So
Wow.
I'm just going to let it rip and we don't have to say something about all of them, but you'll just get a picture of how many excellent shows this guy's worked
For
on. how
the
many
for the
nostalgia
video
shows.
watchers, I'm gonna do a facial reaction for each show's acting.
Do it. Okay.
This is me to you.
He directed an episode of Kenan and Kel, an episode of All of That, 12 episodes of The Amanda Show, 11 episodes of The Bernie Mac Show, 3 episodes of King of Queens, 1 episode of Gilmore Girls, 7 episodes of Everybody Hates Chris, 5 episodes of My Name is Earl, 12 episodes of Scrubs. He did 1 episode of Community, but it's season 1 Basic Genealogy. I wanted to say Nanny McPhee. What's the
Famed Academy Award winner Emma
Catherine
Thompson
McPhee
as Nanny
episode.
McPhee. Zach hates that episode more than I do, but I think it's just because I like Catherine McPhee. She should have won, not Taylor.
It's
Hicks.
not a least favorite. It's clearly one of those episodes where they're still figuring out what kind of show Community is. Okay, he's done 10 episodes of Entourage, 9 episodes
Nice.
of The Office, 10 episodes of The Middle, 1 episode of the one season much forgotten but very good Go On. He did 6
talked about
episodes
that
of
show.
30 Rock. He's done an episode of Happy Endings, 2 episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, 8 episodes of Parks and Recreation, 2
Wow.
episodes of Community's Ken Jeong's Dr. Ken, 2 episodes of Modern Family, 3 episodes of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, 2 episodes
Unbreakable.
of a great underrated show Speechless, 3 episodes of
Speechless is great.
Superstore, 10 episodes of
Superstore.
Blackish, and then 12 episodes of Grace and Frankie, and most
Wow.
recently 1 episode of Abbott Elementary. That's
This
Ken
man
Whittingham,
is just rubbing
television
his
legend.
butt all over.
He's getting
ABC.
it wet all over
Yeah.
TV. You're right. There was a
ABC,
shit ton-
NBC.
not just ABC, but a lot of
Yeah.
ABC.
Good for him.
And then
Prime
the
time.
episode was written by Kate Gersten, who previously wrote the episode Janet and Michael last season. This is her only other writing credit on the show, and her
Two good
list is a lot
episodes.
shorter. Don't get too stressed. Outside of this, she's written and worked on 12 episodes of a show called Mozart in the Jungle, which I think is an
I remember
Amazon
that show.
She's written 1 episode of Schmigadoon, the
Nice.
Keegan-Michael Key, Cecily Strong
Mhm.
musical show, and more recently 3 episodes of a show I don't know called Lost Ollie.
Don't know
That's
that
Kate
one.
Gersten. And this episode of The Good Place, The Book of Dougs, originally aired on January 10th, 2019.
Heyo.
Just about 2 weeks before my birthday.
Aw.
I would have been turning 22, I think.
Yes, because that was the year after we had our Chicago trip for your birthday.
Okay, we're going to talk about the number 1 movie from
Mhm.
January 10th, 2019. This is a superhero movie.
Oh.
I don't know what to say to give it away without, like, giving it away, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's a DC superhero movie.
Okay.
It's a member of the Justice League.
Wonder Woman 1984, is that what it was called?
No, that was 2020 because it was during
Wow.
COVID. The number
Aquaman?
1 movie this week was Jason Momoa's Aquaman.
You mean Amber Heard's Aquaman?
Amber Heard presents Jason Momoa's Aquaman.
Aquaman, yes.
Have you seen Aquaman?
Yeah.
I didn't see this one. I don't care that much about superhero movies
I
unless there's a
think
lot of buzz. I
Aquaman
did
as a
see The Flash.
superhero is just a letdown.
Sure. Kind of a wet
Has some
blanket.
pretty impressive feats, though.
Like his
in the
feet?
animation.
You like his
Yeah,
feet, literally?
love those little watery toes.
He has some pretty
But
impressive
Jason
feats.
Momoa, I like Jason Momoa, okay. The
Yeah, but
movie's
have you
not
been hearing
great.
the stuff about him recently?
Where he showed up to set dressed as Johnny Depp, drunk, trying to get Amber Heard removed from the set?
Is that true?
I heard that recently.
No, I think it's just that I don't know about the Amber Heard part. I've just heard that he started like showing up drunk on set, and that's a pretty bad look when you're the star
Bad
of
behavior.
a franchise.
Yeah.
What do you think people thought of Aquaman? We're going to start with Rotten
Not
Tomatoes,
good.
the critics. What do you think Rotten Tomatoes critics think of Aquaman based off the Tomato Meter score out of 100?
42?
No, it's higher than you'd think, but not so high that it'll make you watch the movie.
63?
It's really close, a little tiny bit higher.
66.
Yes, I'm not giving it to
Heyo.
you, but it is 66%. Do you think then the audience, which I'm sure is going to be a lot of comic book people,
Yeah.
the Rotten Tomatoes audience, based off of a 66% critic score, what do you think
Can
the
you
audience
tell me,
is
is
saying?
the spread more or less than 30?
Less.
Okay, 48.
No, it's actually higher than the critic score, but not by a ton.
I didn't like this movie. But I don't care for
I had
most
no
of the
interest
DC
in
movies.
seeing it.
I
Yeah.
loved the first Wonder Woman. Haven't seen
Really?
the second one. And the Justice League is a bad movie.
The Flash was interesting to put it best.
Mhm.
What do you
Probably
think the
won't see
audience
that
said? Give me a number. You didn't say. Well, you said too low. Give me one more guess. It's higher than the critic score, but not by much. Higher than 66.
69.
72% from the audience on Aquaman. The people over at Letterboxd, the film snob audience community, I've translated their score to out of 100% to go along with the tomato meter motif. What do you think the fine people at Letterboxd think of Aquaman?
25.
No, it's more than double.
52.
That's less than... No, it's not.
No, it's not. Do some fucking math, Zach. Not...
It's... Clearly, I know 25 plus 25 equals 53 and a half. Letterboxd gave it a 56%, which is probably closer to reality.
Yeah, that's probably more correct.
The number one album this week
Mm-hmm.
is a rapper with a Green Day number in his name, and the album has a math equation in it.
Okay, rapper with a Green Day member.
Number.
Oh, number. Is that 21 Savage's?
Yes.
What's that album called? It's not called 1+1.
No,
Is it,
that'd be a good one, though. That'd be a good name.
I literally have heard every 21 Savage album. Why can I not think of the name of this? Because they're all called, like... What the fuck is this album called?
I am greater than sign I was.
Okay,
By
I'll take that.
21 Savage.
Good album. It has
What do you-
hits such as... I'm too drunk to test, so can we FaceTime?
I don't know it. What do you think the people of Pitchfork gave this one out of 10 to the 10th? Pitchfork. I am greater than I was by 21 Savage. Drum roll. Let's hear it.
7.1?
Ooh, it's a little bit higher.
Oh, good. 7.4.
It's a little bit higher at a 7.8 out of 10 from Pitchfork.
That's a pretty fair score from
received album.
Pitchfork, yeah.
The people at Rate Your Music, the kind of the Letterboxd of music, just
I got
as
1,
white,
2, 3,
just
4,
as
5,
snobby.
6, 7, 8 M's in my bank account. Actual song. On there.
What do you think
Count
Rate Your
to 8.
Music is giving it out of 10? This goes to the 100th because I've
Rate Your
translated
Music
it
is probably
out
a
of 10.
little bit lower because I doubt they like new school rap as much. Although is he new school rap? I don't know.
Let's hear a
I'm
guess.
gonna guess
and
they
then I'll
gave
confirm.
it like a 6.9.
It's a little bit lower.
6.6
To the 100th.
2.
No, it's a 6.42 out of 10, which is still a pretty good score, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah,
6.5
it's a good
is not
album.
bad.
I like it.
Yeah, so that was January 10th, 2019.
21 Savage, UK is where he's from. He's not an American citizen.
Really?
Fun fact, yeah. He
Oh, I
he
didn't know
lived in
that.
Atlanta a lot, but he's originally
Maybe
from the
he knows
UK.
Ken Whittingham.
There was like a whole thing where he was like going to get deported.
I do kind of remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we're going to segue back into The Good Place, now that we're back in our couch seats on January 10th, 2019, to turn on Chapter 37 of The Good Place, the Book of Doug's, and we're going to kick it off with one of my favorite segments that we do here every week when we're talking about an episode. Of course, that is, Did Steven watch the episode
this week? 21, 21, 21. He says 21. It's one of his ad libs, Zach. I don't know if you listened to
21
any
seconds
Savage.
on the clock today to
Oh my God,
explain
that's
to the
fantastic.
audience everything that happened in this episode, The Book of Doug's, from beginning to the end. How are you feeling? Do you think you're going to achieve today? Do you think you're going to complete? You're going to achieve completion of the task?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. It's kind of a bottle episode. There's like 2 rooms. 3 rooms. No, there's 2 rooms in this
I don't
episode.
think it counts as a bottle episode. I don't know if a building where we see a bunch of rooms counts as a bottle.
It's 2 rooms.
To my taste.
We get 2 rooms.
Is it just 2?
Yeah.
That's close.
There's a 3rd implied closet, but just 2 rooms.
Well, there always is, isn't there? Are you ready?
I think I'll do okay. I'll give it my best.
All right. On
All
go.
right. Do I actually have 21 seconds, or was that a joke?
Sure. But you
Thanks.
usually get 21 seconds anyway.
Sure, you're not very quick on the thumb movements.
But sometimes
it's the years
that
of
works out for
drinking
me.
have slowed your
Stop
reaction speed.
riffing. It's time now. 3, 2, 1, go.
We're in the good place now. Well, kind of. We're in the correspondence center, and we've got to figure out how to contact the committee. We meet the mailwoman. She is like, she believes everything that we tell her. Chidi and Eleanor have a date together to get her mind off the not being able to go. They're 4 Oreos from Paradise. Michael talks to the committee, and they're going to take way too long, so Michael's going to take it into his own hands and talk to the judge. Janet's in love with Jason, and she can't deal with those emotions because she has to be neutral.
You didn't get that whole statement about Janet. I'm not quite sure what happened there because I think you had the time and I think you got a decent amount, but I'm still left kind of feeling glass half empty. You're nodding your head like you understand that would be the case.
think that it was just disjointed. I think the
It was.
things that I said were all good, but if I had said them in a different order, you would have liked it more.
You kind of stumbled your way through it. I don't think it was horrible. I think we're talking... Since I'm feeling glass half empty and not glass half full, I do think I'm going to put you at a B-.
Okay, I'll take that.
You looked hungry when I gave you that B-. Your eyes got big like saucers.
Well, because I was expecting
I've
a
seen
C+,
that look before.
so I'll take a B-.
C plus.
It was
thinking.
B+ material, but with a C delivery. So
I feel like
think
I've
that's
given
fair.
you C pluses when you've done worse than that.
Mhm.
So that's where we landed at a B-. Let's see how well you do when we talk about trivia, though. I've got, as always, a good smattering of questions. Why
Yeah,
don't you
I'll throw one at
kick it
you
off?
first today. What 2 things do the gang need to do now that they're in the good place?
Make sure they can't be followed
Mm-hmm.
and keep a low profile.
You got it.
What did Jason expect to see in the good place?
Go-karts, and I don't know. What else does he say?
Go-karts driven by monkeys. Wearing sunglasses in Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah. Those, I didn't get the whole thing.
No, you didn't.
How far did Eleanor make it into her heavenly mailman calendar?
That's my next question. She only made it to March. Well, she didn't make it past March.
Didn't
is
make
what
it
she
past
says.
March.
No.
Yeah.
I can't blame her.
Yeah. Going to town.
What does Gwendolyn single out in her initial tour of the Correspondence Center? She says there's this, there's that, and there's this.
She talks about the door to the good place.
Mhm.
She talks about a bowl of fruit.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about a lamp.
No.
Yeah, I only got the door and the bowl of fruit. I don't remember
She
the
says
other things.
there's
the
the
phone. The
sofa.
phone. The sofa.
There's the
There's a
sofa,
table.
there's the bowl of fruit, there's the door to the good place, and here's a paperweight. Look, it's shaped like a little hat.
Cute. How did Eleanor get out of escape rooms?
By breaking stuff until they open the door and kick her out?
Yes, absolutely.
Where does Michael tell the committee to meet him?
The top floor of the Correspondence Center.
Good job. He's on the board, folks. He's on the board.
Mm. Was that the first one I got?
Well, you got part of the tour.
That's
You've
fair.
gotten like part, but
Part
not enough of
both.
each one.
Zach, the multi-part answer guy. How far from
That's what they
heaven
call
are
me.
the humans?
Oh my God, about 5 trillion miles north, south, north.
That's incorrect.
Oh, fuck.
They are
What was
4
it?
Oreos from heaven.
Oh, you're talking about...
They are that
I'm
far from the main entrance to the good
Yes.
place. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I remember the 4 Oreos thing, but I was thinking of a totally different moment.
Yeah.
So we'll give me that one. I think it's fair to give me that one.
No.
Why was Jason wandering around Janet's void?
Because she can make anything, and
Because he wanted...
he wanted to...
Uh-huh.
I don't remember.
Because he wanted to see where she keeps rollerblades.
Ah, that's what it was. That was funny. How many pluots is Kellen supposed to get?
All of them. Oh, well, the answer is going to give away my next question. As many as he can fit in his tote bag.
Yes.
Because my question was, what will Kellen hold the pluots in?
His tote bag. Love the pluot talk here. Have you ever seen a pluot? I don't know what a pluot is.
I think it's in the plum family. And yes,
I love
have.
plums. What did Chidi sneak into his parents' office to read?
My next question also mirrors this, but I can still ask it. The unabridged version of the dictionary. When would Chidi sneak and read the unabridged dictionary?
When his parents were away at symposiums.
Yes.
Chidi. How long will it take the Blue Ribbon Committee to investigate themselves?
I think that's 1,000 years. That's a good 1K años.
Correct.
What do Eleanor's tears taste like?
The nacho cheese from her favorite movie theater.
Yeah, you're coming
I'd rock
back
with that. Where did Eleanor see the Tolstoy quote?
An unverified Tyra Banks page.
Yes. An unverified Tyra Banks account posted the meme on Instagram.
The last one I have for you is, how do you make Jason happy?
You give him a popsicle or sucker? Sucker that's shaped like a
Both
transformer?
of those are the wrong word.
A lollipop shaped like a
A
transformer.
sucker.
Give him a sucker!
A lollipop
lolly.
shaped like, did you say
A
it?
transformer.
Yes. Any more for me?
I've got 2 more for you. I'm going to fire them off. How often does Tahani cry and why?
Oh my god. Well, never, because she's British.
You got it. And who was the last one to leave the good place?
Ooh. Janet?
That was Chidi bringing up the rear.
Good question. I had
Mailman
no
Chidi.
idea. If only in my everyday life could Chidi be bringing it up the rear.
Man, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Good round of trivia. I liked how
Yeah.
some of our questions mirrored the other questions. I like
they
how we
weren't
kind of
exact.
had
That's
both.
good.
I think I got almost all of yours right.
You did really well.
Did I get all of them right? Did I miss any?
You
missed the
missed
one
because
because
you-
I
poor
misremembered what you.
listening
Yeah.
skills. And you missed the last one.
I'd like to open up now the discussion of the episode, The Book
Mm-hmm.
of Doug's, by saying that this is an episode that I remember not disliking, but remember not liking as much at being kind of middle ground of the season. And then I watched it this time for the first time in a while, and I was really pleasantly surprised by it. I think a lot of it has to do with, on first go around, I was less invested and in awe of Chidi and Eleanor's relationship. I think now, this time, they've earned a lot of goodwill from me to give them that in this episode, and I think pretty much everything else is just outstanding. Maybe when I first watched the episode, I was a little bit disappointed that, again, we don't see the good place, but now I get that that's the point, and that was always the point, is that nobody gets to see the good place. So that doesn't bother me anymore, and I really like Nicole Byer. We talked off pod, and I'll let you respond to this, that you don't dislike her as a person or anything, but as a television reality show host personality, you're not quite crazy about Nicole Byer.
Yeah, I don't have any beef with Nicole Byer. I think that she's absolutely perfect in this episode.
Yeah, she
but
is.
I don't love her all the time hosting all the Netflix shows, but I also don't love all the Netflix shows. So that also might sour
Nobody
it as
does.
I associate her with some of those trash shows that Danny and I watch to let our brains melt. But I remember liking this episode a lot, and I remember this episode very, very well. I don't know why this one is like so clear in my head, like from top to bottom. Clearly not from my review, but like before we were watching this, I remembered so many bits about this episode and liking where it goes. But I do think of this episode as kind of a transitional piece. And then watching it, I absolutely loved it. I think that it nails so many things so well. I really enjoyed it. It's always a sign of a really good episode when I'm watching. I'm like, oh shit, I need to be writing down trivia because I'm enjoying watching.
That's
it
how
so
I
much.
was with the Janet's episode. Okay, last week we had a conversation off podcast that every time we record a podcast, I have a list of things. I'm like, damn, I should have said that. One of my big ones last week that I want to say it because I think it's good enough to say. There's that shot when Chidi Janet is teaching the class, and it's the 3 desks sitting next to each other, and the Eleanor, Jason, and Tahani Janets are different heights.
Yeah.
The Tahani one is tall, the Eleanor one is short, and they're all right next to each other. That's such a cool
It's a great
detail that they
detail.
pull off in that episode. I really like this episode too. You say it's a transition episode, and I get why you would say that, but I think I can point out a couple moments that make this one of the more important transition episodes. I think this episode has quite a bit of food for thought. There was a sequence in the end when I looked over at Lil and was like, they're saying the real shit. This episode's saying some real shit and getting to the heart of some real stuff. So I'm excited to get into it. Do you have anything
too.
you want to say before we hop on in?
Let's blue skidoo.
Let's do it. So the gang's in the good place. Did your episode have previously on that was
Yeah, it
literally
did.
just Eleanor
Just
saying,
Eleanor
holy
saying-
forking shirt balls, we're in the good place. Why couldn't
Yeah.
that have just been the start? I don't think we needed the previously on
We did not.
title. We could start with that line.
I was thinking there must be more in your version, but I guess not.
No, there wasn't like a recap. And I watched Janet's again before
Mm-hmm.
watching this one, so they transitioned right into each other really well. The gang's in the good place. They're kind of maybe not disappointed, but a little underwhelmed that it's not
Yeah.
bright and shiny and magical. Tahani says, well, it's rather carpeted, really.
That's great.
The good place wouldn't have carpet all over the floor, I don't think. It's also not what Jason expected,
beneath them.
because he was expecting the monkeys and the go-karts and all that. And Chidi says, what? And Eleanor says, don't even
Don't.
bother. So Michael has them all take a deep breath. The deep breath comes back a couple of times in this episode to make you feel better. I think so often a deep breath is what you need to feel better. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, if you take a deep breath and like count to 10 and then breathe out and count to 10, your problem doesn't go away, but your hormones will calm down and you will feel a little better. So I think it works the way they bring that up a couple times in this episode. And also it works because the good place, the air that you breathe smells like your favorite thing all the time.
Which is, it's intense, but I get it. I like it.
I think if you had a simple smell, it would get old after a while.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the humans have kind of complex ones, because Eleanor says all the different smells involved with her favorite water park, Typhoon Falls, or
Which
her
I
favorite
kind of
ride.
do like the smell of a water park, now that I think about it.
I guess, yeah. We learned that Michael, he doesn't know a lot about the good place, but this is one of the things he did know about the good place when he was studying it to make his neighborhood. We learn all the things that make everyone happiest that they smell. Chidi says warm pretzels, which is a great smell, but no,
Yeah.
it's actually absolute moral truth.
I love Janet's. They're actually very similar.
And then Jason smells Blake Bortles. I think this is really funny because I've typed Bortles enough times on my notes. When I type out Bortles, it instantly makes it all caps.
That's fantastic.
So Jason smells Blake Bortles winning the Super Bowl and Dan Patrick saying, Blake, how do you feel? And I couldn't have done it without Jason and weed.
Very funny.
And Tahani smells classism. She smells
Yum.
what? The curtain closing
between first class and economy.
Have you done first class, Steve?
Yeah, I think I've told that story on here before.
Okay. Because of Tahani, probably.
I always fly really high. Not because I'm
Well,
like scared
you know,
of flying,
you're in the
because it
sky,
just
so you kinda
enhances-
everyone
enhances
is.
the experience. So I was like running late to the airport at like 6 a.m. and I was like, I don't have time to pour this THC syrup in a drink and shake it up and drink it. So I'm just gonna chug the bottle of THC syrup
That's
straight.
disgusting.
It was a lot of milligrams of THC. I don't want to say the number because I might die out loud if I say it. If I admit to the world,
You'll
that
tell
I
the whole
consumed as
rest
much
of
at
the
once.
story, but
Yeah.
that's the part that you're a little tight-lipped about.
And then I'm like on the plane in the very first seat, my first time in first class. I like stopped and got some food on the way, but I'm like absolutely like
So you didn't get to
zonked.
enjoy it.
I was asleep. I refused to let them take my food away from me. I refused to accept.
Like, what do you
any
mean
new
by
food from
refuse?
them.
They said, "Oh, hey, are you
Like
finished
they
with
said,
that?"
"Are you finished? You want me to take it?" And I was like, "No," and I like
Hit it.
hugged it. I like threw up in the bathroom halfway through the flight. It was wild, but it was you know, the seat was big. I remember that. They were very attentive.
Do you think it's worth paying a little extra money, or do you think it's just like if you luck into first class?
If it's a flight where it's not super expensive, it's nice. to
Maybe for a
fly.
long flight, it would be
Yeah,
nice. Okay.
totally.
So that's what Tahani smells. And Michael suggests that, okay, we're not really in the good place. We're adjacent to the good place. Obviously, this is like some mail room where we spend a lot of this episode. And Eleanor gets excited for a moment, which becomes a great callback when she talks about, ooh, sexy heaven mailman. This is just like that calendar I had. And Chidi, what? This episode, we'll talk about the Chidi and Eleanor of it all. It does get north of too schmoopy for me a couple of times. But what I do like about this episode is how easily Eleanor and Chidi being like bemused by what the other one thinks about has become something that attracts them to each other.
It's
That
cute. I
Chidi's
like
like,
it.
what the fuck are you talking about? But it's now with love in a different
Well, I
way.
also like the kind of doubling up on the joke, like how Eleanor was like, don't worry about the Jason thing. Then Michael says the same to Chidi when he's like, what? When Eleanor talks about the calendar.
That's
Very
okay.
funny.
Don't worry about it. Michael breaks down that there's 2 rules. The first rule is that we can't be followed. So Janet makes sure of that by blowing up the mailbox chute. I would have loved to have seen that from the perspective of the room in the accounting area. Like the tube
bricks come
blowing
falling
up.
down.
Yeah. So Janet blows up the mailbox, and then what gets us to the little theme blurb is Michael saying, Rule 2, keep a low profile, which clearly there's no way they can do that now. We cut back into that same room, and Michael's telling what their cover story is going to be. He's going to pose as an accountant. Janet's going to pose as a neutral Janet. Yeah. It's a really neat effect when her clothes change like that. And the other thing is going to be that the humans are there because they won a contest. I like immediately Eleanor says, really? And Jason says, really? This is the second time they've made this next joke on this show. I feel like maybe they cut it out the first time we watched this episode. But Chidi says, well, why don't we just come clean? I mean, we're refugees. What kind of place, what kind of messed up place would turn away refugees? Was that in your episode?
That was in my episode.
They said this a first time when... I think it's the hot air balloon episode when they say, well, what kind of messed up place would turn away refugees?
I wonder if that was cut out the first time.
And I love that it's a point. There are quite a few America allegories in this show, and there are a few in this episode. And I love that that's one that if it did get cut out the first time, that they're like, no, that's a point we want to make.
Well, and I like that, I don't know, the way it's delivered and like edited and cut in the episode, it doesn't
like they're
leave
looking right at the
space like it's
camera.
like a joke. Yeah, it's like said straight. It's not
Yeah.
like pause for laughter, which
Yeah.
I like a lot.
I like it too. But Michael knows that might not work out because the people in the good place are all rule followers, and they might just send them to the bad place on principle, which cues our main guest star of the episode, Nicole Byer, as Gwendolyn. I think you're right. She is perfect in this. Her delivery works so well for the idiot, just unassuming, good place peon that she is. I think she's so funny.
Have you ever seen the movie The Invention of Lying?
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of gives me that vibes of like just absolute trust.
Well, okay.
Because lying isn't a thing. She's in the good place. And I think I buy it. Like, I don't think at any point it's unbelievable that she's believing everything that they're saying.
Man, and say what you want about Ricky Gervais, because there are things to say about him. And this is kind of a spoiler for The Invention of Lying. The whole idea is that he's this atheistic guy that doesn't believe in anything. But then in the end, like, I think his mom is dying. And he tells her, well, you're going to see heaven. And it's all
well, that's like towards
there.
the beginning. That like sets off.
Is that
like,
in the beginning?
That's like what kind of starts him down the lying thing is him saying there's a place in the sky that you go and like you're going to be okay. And then everyone's like, wow, you know that? And then that like sets off like a big thing. But like that's
I remember now. But it's deep because I think most of us that believe that way, if your grandparent or your parent is asking you for affirmation that everything's going to be okay about this, you're going to tell them that it is. So Gwendolyn shows up, Michael's on the spot, and they have to improv their explanation.
And as we were climbing through the mailbox, it blew up.
The explosion was caused by demons. We were being chased by demons.
And there was a Dracula chasing us.
Was there though, Jason?
Yeah. Maybe Drac blew up the mailbox with his bazooka.
I like that not only do we have Dracula, but we have him established to the point that he can be called Drac, and also he has a bazooka. I think that is Jason at his peak.
But Gwendolyn questions nothing. She's like, well, all right then. Well, come on in. Welcome. And Michael introduces our Janet as neutral Janet. One of my favorite little tiny moments is Janet delivers her first neutral line, but then like smiles at herself at the end of it, which I think is just
but also not
adorable.
Hello. Statement
End
over.
of conversation.
It's cute.
A funny Gwendolyn Michael moment. Well, here's 4 humans if you could believe it. Well, watch this. I believe it. He tells her, and Michael explains, well, these guys won a contest to be here. And there's a long pause to see if she buys the stupid idea. And she says, congratulations, guys. Come on in. So they do. And she explains to them that they're in the correspondence center. She gives them the tour. You know, there's all the regular stuff that we mentioned. And here's the door to the good place. But she just kind of brushes over it. She's like, oh, yeah, there's the door to the good place. Here's this really cool paperweight. So they all, Tahani first, of course, like all pick up on this. That's the door to the good place. And it is, but it's just a door to the good place. It won't open for them because they're humans. So they're stuck here inside. Kind of weird you want a contest to be in this building. Michael then volunteers himself and the humans to help clean up the mess that's been made in the mailroom. And they share a really awkward laugh when Gwendolyn says, like, oh, wow, it's like I won a contest. And they're just, ha, 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 ha. And they all head off to help her clean up while Eleanor and Chidi hang back here. And they're going to hold back for a second as the rest of them leave because Eleanor has to try to open that door.
Yeah.
She wrestles it. Of course, it doesn't open. Chidi says, of course, it's not going to open. So she says,
Which
okay.
I would try the handle at least.
Okay, brush it off. She throws a lamp at it to see if that's going to work. Nothing happens there. And you brought it up in your trivia. It's such a funny line. It takes you right back to Eleanor on Earth that she would always win escape rooms this way because if you throw enough stuff and break it, they'll open the door and kick you out.
Have you done an escape room, Zach?
I've done it once and we weren't that good at it.
I did it once with like my family.
It all depends on the group and your community. I guess I've done it twice. I did it once as a work thing, and we did complete it, and my
Nice.
team won. But
Yeah, my
I
family
because
completed
that was one where you had two sides competing.
Oh,
and
wow.
whoever got through the thing first wins.
Oh, that's
It was
cool.
like you're in a car garage, and you're trying to do all this stuff to get the garage door to open. And there were also like side quests you could do that would add time to the other
Oh, that's
person's
cool.
time. That was really fun.
That's fun.
Are you good at them? Was your family good at it?
Yeah.
I could see that. I think it's all about the group. And if you're good at communicating with each other, like when we play these games like Overcooked and the bomb blowing up game, it's about communication.
It's about
And people
communication.
have to be like, I'm doing this part, you guys go do this part, and then we'll come back together.
Yeah.
But Eleanor
good.
doesn't have time for that. She'll just throw stuff.
Which I respect that.
I have the image of Eleanor then with friends being like, oh, guys, let's do escape rooms. I'm really good at escape
really
rooms.
good.
And then the
Starts
second
breaking
the
stuff
clock starts
immediately.
turning, she just starts breaking stuff.
Is everything okay in there?
Yep.
Okay, no follow-up questions.
Chidi asks Eleanor, what's going on here while you're smashing stuff? What do you really want to talk about? And Eleanor says, and I think this is smart to not totally drop the huge existential stuff that she had going on last week, that all of this has been building up on her. All of the dying and coming back alive and re-dying and learning your past lives, and now you're in the good place, but there's a door behind them. She's freaking out about this thought that there's just a couple of inches between them and heaven. 4 Oreos, which is such a fun analogy to use that they bring back a couple
Love
times
that.
throughout the episode. They're just 4 Oreos from heaven. And Chidi, I'd like to hear what you think about Chidi in this episode. We see a different, decisive, calming instead of needing to be calm Chidi in this episode to Eleanor as she's going through her stuff. Do you think that's true to what we've seen of Chidi?
Yeah, I think that Chidi cares about his friends, and Chidi has always made the decision to help people he cares about. Even when it meant him being sent to the bad place, even when it, in all those scenarios. And so I think that now that he's sure about what happens after you die, he's sure about his feelings for Eleanor, I think he's reached a place of contentment that we've only seen short clips of Chidi in that mode. And I think that him here is the Chidi that he always could be if he weren't constantly freaking out. And it's really cool to see. I like it.
I feel like your perspective shifts when you're in a relationship. And you're able to put a lot of your things, your anxieties and your needs to the side because you want to make everything better for that other person.
Yeah.
And I think there becomes a point in the show, I know there does at the end of the show, where Chidi realizes that he's putting too much of himself into that. But I think here it works really well for him that now he has more of a perspective than just himself and watching out for himself. And I think it works. I think it could be a jump that's a little corny for some people, but I think it works really well.
I like it.
So Chidi sits her down. He's going to be right there with her no matter what they have to go through. And he has her again. We take a deep breath. And we really see here how that does help ground Eleanor. And it's a sweet moment. I think it's an awe. But then it's a funny moment because Eleanor says, the smell of the barf from the wave pool. It's really helping. And Chidi takes a long time and makes a meal out of. How? Why? Michael is trying to get some information out of Gwendolyn in the mailroom, and he needs to speak with the committee of the good place. It's urgent. And Gwendolyn is like that lady in Disney World, how she should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Because she just gives you the information that you've requested in a friendly way, but it also becomes a weird thing for Michael to have to like walk around to get the real information out of her, but not really. So he needs to talk with the committee, which is, of course, that's against the rules because you can only do that if you contact them directly. And the only way to contact them is on this phone that she has with the thumbs up on it. I like the good place symbol that shows up a couple times, but she can't tell him the number, and they keep up with this back and forth. He learns that you don't really need a number. You just pick it up.
Pick it up and call.
It connects you to whoever you want to talk to, but you can't use it. So Michael starts asking, well, hypothetically...
Is there any way that you would know if I did use the phone? Any kind of alarm?
Golly, no.
So it's entirely untraceable.
Sure is. What a fun thought experiment.
You said it, Gwendolyn. Oh, sorry. Is that a dog barking in another room?
I doubt it because I don't have a dog, but out of politeness and an abundance of caution, I'll go check.
Hello, doggy.
Immediately, Michael picks up the phone and says exactly what he needs to say as quickly as he can get it out. I need to meet with the committee on the top floor of the Correspondence Center.
Which I like because I think that some shows would have had him have way too long a conversation and her be gone an unbelievably amount of time. But I believe that that's the amount of time that she went in the room, looked for a dog, and came back.
And if all you have to do is pick up the phone and the person you need is on the other line, that's all you got to say. That gets all the information out in one sentence. Jason is looking through mail in the mailroom as Tahani cleans. And Tahani says, Jason, you seem thoughtful. That concerns me. What's going on? Twice in this scene, Jason says, well, do you remember that time when we were all in Janet's void and we were all Janet's? I do. Yeah. That just happened. He asks her for advice on the Janet situation because he feels weird about it. He doesn't know how to react to the news, and he feels kind of bad. He says it in a Jason way for reading her diary, but it feels like an invasion of privacy, which I actually think is a pretty emotionally mature way to feel about seeing something like that. Not like, how could she have all this weird shit about me, but like, oh my God, I was never meant to see that. I feel bad. I'm sorry. I think that's a really mature stance.
I do too. I like that.
So Tahani tells him the best thing to do, and I think this is great. It's a couple episodes in a row of Tahani being a really great friend who speaks from the heart and doesn't make it about herself in moments like this. She tells him that he needs to be honest and tell her how he feels, or tell her at least that he knows that it's always best to start with the truth, and once that's out, to move forward from there. And Jason says, thank you. It's nice to know I can talk about girls with my wife. He goes over to have that conversation with Janet and says, hey, Janet, do you remember when we were all in your void and we were all Janet? I do.
When you killed us and put us in your void?
I think it's really good writing the way Janet reacts to this information, that Jason saw these things, that she feels deeply, deeply embarrassed about this. And Jason's ready to talk about it. He says he was freaked out at first, but now he feels ready to talk about it. But Janet doesn't want to. She doesn't want to address this. She's got so much shit going on. She almost died last week. She's exhausted.
Yeah.
She has to pretend to be neutral. I think this is a really good, smart move from the writers to have Janet react this way. I think it makes a lot of sense for a real character.
Well, and I think this is a writer that knows how to write Janet. Janet and Michael's are really good. It's more of a Michael episode, but there's a lot of Janet in it too that's really important.
The reason is friends. We talk about that moment maybe more than any moment in the show so far.
So I think that she really understands Janet growing as a being and gaining emotions and being confused and kind of ticked off at a lot of those emotions, especially when Janet's trying so hard to play the role of a neutral Janet because she understands what's at stake if they're found out to be lying. And she's like, I can't deal with this right now. I can't really deal with it at all, but especially not right now. And I think that frustration coming out at Jason is really believable.
And it's a really compelling conflict because you're keeping up with it just by watching her. They almost don't even have to talk about it. Just this ticking thing that now they've set, and you can watch her just like squirm through all the scenarios. And that happens here when Gwendolyn shows up and Janet's trying to hold it all together, and she says her neutral Janet line, and the neutral Janet has been known to end everything by saying end of conversation. Yeah. And then they get to use it to a new effect here when she says end of conversation, and then Jason tries to talk to her and she says again end of conversation. Yeah.
Really good.
We're on the top floor. The committee's coming. Michael's taking a deep breath, and he's trying to talk himself up and not to let the committee intimidate him. But then when they arrive, through a really cool effect of a thing that pops up and they all come through and has a good place symbol on it, they all come in and they're instantly the least intimidating people ever. They marvel at the room and how much they love it. And wow, I've never been here before. Have you seen this? No, this
Friend
is
of the
great.
show, Paul Scheer.
Yeah, Steven's close personal friend.
Paul Scheer. Yes.
Hangs out with him and Jason Mantzoukas all the time. They get beers
all the time.
in
Big
Chicago
city
all the
thing,
time.
Chicago. What can I say?
Michael introduces himself to them and thanks them for coming, but Paul Scheer, as one of the committee members, says, no, thank you.
It is one of the great honors of my eternal life to be invited here by you today to this momentous occasion. Now, who are you and why are we here?
Michael gets right to the point. I think Michael's great in this episode. Ever since he got that pep talk from Janet, he's been so decisive. He has such a plan, even if the hunches that he's working off of are still wrong. Yeah. Because what he's stuck on is that the bad place has to be interfering, and he thinks that the bad place is infiltrated accounting.
Well, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but no one wants to believe that the system in place to keep them safe is broken.
And it is.
And it is.
And what the show, I think, tries to say, maybe there's no right way to do it.
Yeah.
And maybe that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be one, but maybe it does, and who knows? And I don't know. Yeah, this is a big episode for a lot of those ideas.
It brings up the conversation of saying that there's no right way to do it is the wrong way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And saying that everything's fine how it is also the wrong way to do it. So he tells them this, and because it's the show that it is, you always expect something to happen that stalls it. And I think this episode smartly makes you think maybe that's not going to happen at first, because they're so clearly, like, they're concerned about it. And they say, okay, guys, focus up. Everyone, you've got a task. But the first thing that we think is maybe off is when we say, you do this, Kellen, you hit up the farmer's market, get us as many, what does he say
peaches.
before Pluots? Get us as many peaches as you can. Well, actually, I think Pluots are in season. The Pluots, by God, Pluots in the tote bag, Kellen, please. We cut from that to Chidi, who is trying to comfort Eleanor by bringing her a cup of water that he says that he got from a glowing bowl that he found. And he's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe this is actually the toilet. I'm going to go throw that out. Meanwhile, Eleanor is trying to jimmy the lock. Of course she is. But everything she uses to try to open the lock turns to glitter, which is a really cute, good place visual gag. But Chidi reminds her, hey, we're together. It's okay. We are technically in heaven, and we're in love. This is the moment that if I want to pull any, I think I could have done without Chidi saying, and we're in love yet. It's just the first episode after that big moment. He could have even said, we're in heaven, and we're falling in love, and we're together. I think this is where it feels like, oh, all of a sudden it's been one episode, and they act like they've been together a really long time. And in a way they have, but I think based off of the conflict last week with Chidi being so certain that the two Chidis were different, I could have done not with hesitancy, but just more of a feeling that this is the beginning of a new relationship. This is the one moment where it kind of sticks out for me.
I don't have an issue with him saying they're in love, because I think they're past falling in love at this point. I think they are in love with each other.
Thought. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way.
I agree that it's not necessary for him to say it there, because I think they say it later and it is more. But here, I think it would have been fine for him to just say, hey, we're in heaven, we're together, that's all that matters right now. I think would have been enough.
Eleanor is still classic Eleanor, though. She shows off her killer anxiety sweats, and I think it's a really natural performance moment from Kristen Bell when she does the like, oh, geez, you can't really see
right
it. Oh
through
my God.
the sweater, yeah.
But then Chidi says, you know what? I've got an idea, and this is really cute. This could be too schmoopy for some people, but I kind of fell hook, line, and sinker for this. Maybe if you wanted to argue that someone at some point would walk in on their date, and even if Gwendolyn isn't suspicious, something other than them just being allowed to be here without any interference really for so long. But I choose not to fall into that because it does win me over with sweetness.
I have an idea to take your mind off the door. Let's go on a date. What? No, I'm serious. Why not have our first date 4 Oreos away from paradise?
I
so
love that.
Cute.
I swooned for Chidi in that moment.
And I swooned for Eleanor that, what, even after I'm sweaty, you still like me? Even after saying that? Swoon for real. There's a couple of those moments in the episode. Michael's talking to the committee, and he says, you've got to admit, it's really odd that nobody has gotten in. I think it's Paul Scheer again, who has a really funny line. Well, there's been a couple of dips, like that time 200,000 years ago when they invented stabbing, and everyone just started stabbing each other all the time.
That was great.
But Michael has receipts. He brings up Doug Forsett. My favorite Doug mention here was when Michael says, he takes nude walks after it rains, so no mosquitoes.
Wasn't in my episode.
Doug will take nude walks after it rains so no mosquitoes go hungry.
That's so funny.
And he isn't even close. Michael still believes and he stands by, which he's wrong, and we'll learn that soon. Again, the only explanation has to be the bad place. They're rigging the system. Man, my third eye's opening to the good place. That's what the two sides in politics do. It's them. It's the bad guys. It's got to be them that are infiltrating the system, making it work for them, which makes it work against me. When no, the whole thing's broken. Throw the whole thing out. And I've been thinking about that a lot, but I hadn't thought specifically of that, how Michael being so dead set on, no, it's these guys that I've learned are the bad guys. And even if you want to dig deeper, Michael being a reformed bad guy, like me, you grow up sheltered, not exactly conservative, but having that preached to you. Yeah. And then the holier than thou and villainized view you have looking back on it, I think it's deep as fuck. I got the whiteboard out. I'm pointing it. If this and this and this means this. He knows it has to be the bad guys.
Yeah. I think that's what they're saying. I didn't know it was as hidden as that. But I'm glad that this is. I think this is a moment where it's very clearly like this.
Well,
is
I think there are
allegory
moments
we're drawing.
later in this episode where it becomes even more clear, super clear. So that's now I'm looking back at these other moments and seeing how so delicately and satisfyingly they've set all of these dominoes up.
Well, and I think even as far back as, well, isn't there a medium place? And the answer being no initially, even though there is one, I think that alone set this whole thing up and opens that conversation of, well, and my perspective coming from somebody who grew up in an African-American family and in a place that is a red state, red town usually, it's very much you're either this or you're that.
Yes.
And
so most of people are this.
Yeah.
And when you're that, it's like a ton of bricks sometimes.
I mean, even our conversation earlier about going to see Rocky Horror in costume.
And someone saying, I saw you there last night. And even though knowing that means they were there too, a twinge of
like, oh no, is this person going to call me out in this mire for having fishnets on my legs?
Yeah.
Like, is that what's going to transpire? Because that's what we grew up with, was either you're normal or you're different, and different is bad.
We just need to make everyone in our hometown watch this show and listen to our podcast so
great.
they can learn how stupid they are.
Hey, all you idiots.
One of the committee members is like, oh, bad place people are all disgusting monsters. Michael says, well, I don't know. Some of them are kind of cool, man about town types. I love all the applauding from the committee that goes down. And all of the things where Michael, even though he knows that this is kind of put on, he loves it anyway. It feels good anyway, so they applaud him. He feels great. I think Ted Danson has a quietly great episode, him being so pleased by all this. And they all let him know one at a time that they're so grateful for everything he's done, everything he will do, everything he won't do, everything he might do, everything in between. Lots of rounds of applause going around. And then the woman of the group stands up to announce that they're going to find a solution. They got to figure this out. It's really important. It's the next thing they're going to do. And meanwhile, Kellen is going to shower Michael with compliments while they figure this out.
Which I think is really funny. Kellen has a shining star for his time on the committee.
My two favorite Kellen compliments were, you have a lot of gravitas. My other one was, you're a nice height.
That was my favorite one. I liked you're a nice height.
You are such a good speaker. This suit is very flattering. You have a lot of gravitas.
I thought I was going to be annoyed by this, but it's wonderful.
Your jawline is extraordinary. You're a nice height. Your energy is electric.
Back in the mail area, Gwendolyn is telling Janet how nice it's been to have some company. And Janet's kind of been dropping the ball as far as pretending to be neutral, but because Gwendolyn has no reason but to be trusting of anything, she doesn't really notice. So Gwendolyn will like turn around and look at the others, and Janet will make a like, I don't know, kind of face at the other guys. Gwendolyn starts asking Tahani and Jason some questions about them and says, so how did you guys meet? And Jason says, oh, me and Tahani met in brain school and we got married because nothing matters. Oh, okay. Are all humans as attractive as you two? No. No. And then she goes, fantastic. And then just keeps moving along. Gwendolyn and Jason head off for a second. Gwendolyn asks him for help to get some more wicker baskets, giving Tahani a reason to apologize and a time to apologize to Janet. Janet is also kind of mortified because she didn't realize Tahani saw the things too. I think it's a really good Tahani episode. Some
Great
really
Tahani
small
episode.
moments for Jamila Jamil. When you saw that too?
Nope. Jamila Jamil is such a captivating actor.
And she's getting better because
It's
she kind
great.
of got plucked to play Tahani
Yeah.
because of but she
Yeah.
wasn't really an actress to this level before this. And she's
it's
getting
really
better.
impressive.
She's working with some of the best in the sitcom world at the time.
Yeah.
And she's clearly learning a lot from them, and she's clearly being given a lot of support in this situation to do all of these things. She's great, and it's a good episode.
I
for
think
her.
this is a standout Tahani episode for me in terms of her growth and her delivery of all her lines, the acting just on her face. Great Jamila Jamil episode.
Without being very ham-fisted, too. Because they don't really make it much about her growth.
No.
You just know that that's
just
what this
see.
is because we know these characters so well.
And there's a line that we'll talk about later that I think especially kind of speaks to that and speaks to how far they've just come as a group that I like quite a bit.
Janet's continuing to try to keep it neutral, but she's getting concerned because she's not used to all of these emotions. They're all new to her. Not only is she trying to stay neutral, she's feeling things for the first time ever and having to keep them under wraps. What if they come out? What if they come out of my butt? She's really
That's
worried
a fear
about
I
it.
have every day.
Well, that when it's as loose as it is, it's a wonder
They can
anything
just slip right
stays
out.
in there.
Yeah.
Back to the schmoopy. Chidi and Eleanor are setting up their little date. Chidi's like doing cute things. I think William Jackson Harper is just cute as a button all throughout this episode, doing all these cute things. They find a bottle of champagne, and Chidi says, well, should we feel bad about taking it? And Eleanor opens the thing and says, it says, to Gwendolyn, thank you for thanking me, for thanking you, for thanking me, for thanking you for some champagne. And Chidi says, pop that
Pop
bitch.
that bit. Yeah. Love that.
And Eleanor's having fun. She's feeling better. She's enjoying sneaking around with the guy again. She hasn't done that since her youth, since she was still alive. And Chidi's like, oh yeah, it's like that for me too. Like when I would sneak in to read the unabridged dictionary. And sure, it's a lame Chidi burn, but what I do think is kind of deeper level good writing to this, that's how he learned all the bad words. And that's why he wasn't allowed to look at it. Because the unabridged dictionary isn't like the school dictionary. So it has like the bad words and the anatomical words.
Yeah. It's cute.
So that would be the type of thing that's like edgy for Chidi to be like, oh my God, it says ass in here. It's a donkey.
I think it's really cute. And I think it speaks true because especially when you're in that honeymoony phase with somebody, and even when you've been with somebody a long time, things that make them, you find really attractive.
Yes.
And I think that these are things that make Chidi
even when you're
Chidi.
bewildered by them.
Yeah.
Like, I bet, like, when you found out that Danny didn't think Dalmatians existed.
I thought it was
that
the
you're
cutest
like,
thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's adorable, and I've loved no one more than this right now. But it's also, like, the stupidest thing.
But it's
and that's what it
adorable.
is
I
when
love
you adore someone, and you see this. Eleanor can't believe I'm attracted to you. And one of my favorite moments of Chidi being a little more dominant in this episode is him saying, well, you are, and I'm not worried about that anymore because you told me, and now I know it, and I can hold that against you. I think it's really, really cute.
I don't know if that line was in my episode. That's cute, though.
I am paraphrasing a little, but it's a little sexy. He's like, well, now I know that you're attracted to me, so I don't care. I know.
Yeah.
Kind of cute. Chidi says, I've got a surprise for you. Stay right there. Wait a second. And he comes back. I like how first all we get is a shot of his arm, and you see that arm. They really captured his arm. And he's there as a sexy heaven mailman for Eleanor. Where do you think the costume comes from? Do you think there's clothes everywhere? Because this is what Gwendolyn's wearing.
It's yeah.
It's not a Janet thing. He just went and grabbed one. And Eleanor, it's really sweet. It's really funny. I think we've all been in moments like this when you're in the relationship,
Yeah.
and something happens that you're like, this person doesn't just get me, they get me. And it brings her to tears. And I know I've had moments like that bring me to tears.
Absolutely.
And it is the things that were not intended to bring you to tears.
Yeah.
And it
100%. The moment where you're like, oh wow, this is the person that
at least in this moment, at least in this lifetime or whatever. Like
Yeah.
in the now, this is it for sure. And she has this cry. Chidi's not really sure what that means. He's like, are you happy? Are you horny?
A horny cry?
Probably my favorite Kristen Bell moment. He's like, well, is it the outfit? And she's
I love the outfit! You look amazing! And this sucks, and I'm furious, and I'm the happiest I've ever been, and I blame you!
It's all your fault.
We cut away from that wonderful little bit. Back to the committee, who, this episode, other than the Janet thing, it makes you feel like it's all kind of good vibes coming.
Yeah.
Good news ahead, good place ahead. But the committee announces they've made their decision. They know what they're going to do, what their decisive action is. They tell Michael that, okay, we're going to do this, and it's just going to take 400 years. And they start implying, well, that's really rushing us, that's really putting us on the fast track, but we'll do it. We'll take those 400 years and we'll form the team. And this is just when the line between real world and good place world is just shattered. Because, Michael, well, why can't we do something like now? Things are happening now that are affecting people, whether it's in our world. People are dying or getting sick or being hungry. When you could do something now, why aren't we? Or in this world, in a grand scheme, every person goes to hell until you do something.
Yeah.
Why won't you do something?
And I like the person's response when they're like, we're the good guys. We can't just do stuff.
America in any global conflict.
Yeah. Well,
unless they decide they want to show off.
Yeah.
We're the good guys. We can't just do stuff when people ask us. We've got to do it when we're forcing it.
Exactly. When it benefits us.
All of the committee laughs at this, and they tell the rest of the plan. That team, 400 years, they're going to bring together a blue ribbon commission together. That'll take 1,000 years. And then the oversight committee races will dissolve that committee to check the bias.
They cut.
So we'll have the blue ribbon committee for 1,000 years. Then the races really start, and we'll form the oversight committee, which will totally throw out the last committee to make sure they're not biased.
Oh my God.
And then Michael, I think he's so winning in all of this. He's able to so eloquently explain, like we were just saying, everybody goes to the bad place until we fix this. And the good place people are like, oh, don't you worry. And this is any politician. We will not rest until the time that we rest and play golf and we go to the country club.
Oh, that's not it.
I made that up. All they say
I
is
see.
we will not rest until rest time.
That's
because
funny.
It's not a good idea to work yourself down. But I feel like that's how our politicians are.
Yeah.
We are on this until, well, I have an appointment on Thursday.
Well, it's like 3 o'clock.
I really like a steak on Friday night. Kellen says, hear, hear. But Kellen, did you file a hear, hear memorandum? No, I didn't. Oh, well, then you got to take it back. Was this in yours?
In mine, he says the hear and they're like, did you file a memorandum? And he's like, oh, no, I didn't. I sincerely apologize, and I resign immediately.
And he steps down. More applause. Tahani is trying here to help Jason and Janet. This is what's going to go on to really merge Tahani with Michael's storyline. She makes this certificate that says, death did us part. I think it's really cute idea. I think it totally gets across. She's making the certificate that, okay, Janet, if what you're hung up on, which isn't really what she's hung up on, that me and Jason are married, you know what? We died. It was till death do us part. We did. So.
And here's why this show is so great. A normal show, oh, that's so sweet, Tahani. That's really kind of you. I love that. In this one, Janet's like, well, that's fucking embarrassing because now everyone in the room knows that I like Jason. And Jason's like, oh, yeah, I'm fucking dead. Thanks a lot, Tahani.
Yeah, she says, I feel both pitied and put on the spot. So that's fun. And Jason's like, yeah, and it's a cool reminder of how I'm dead. So she says, okay, never mind. Takes a stamp, cancels it. Oh, does that mean we're married now? No, we're not married. Rips it up. And then she kind of cackles crazily and runs off. She doesn't know what to do. She really thought she had this one figured out because she has been aces lately. She's been saying the right things, helping people along their journey. But now she sees when you do that, it can you can meddle too much and it causes a mess. Back to Chidi, who's comforting Eleanor. What a good thing to hear from a partner when Eleanor's like, I don't know why I'm crying. And Chidi just says, cry as long as you want. What a good thing to hear in a situation like that. No, like, hey, it's okay, just get it together. Hey, pick yourself up, sniffle. No, you're going through a thing.
Let it out. I'm here.
Let it out. We'll talk about it later if you want. I'll be here. You can cry.
Yeah.
It bothers me because this scene is so good and Kristen Bell's face is so clearly not wet with tears.
Mm-hmm.
That
fair.
bothers me a little bit. Just as
You're
a
looking
little
at Kristen
thing.
Bell's face in this scene and not William Jackson Harper's jacked bod.
Well, it's just hard to see when this show was filmed in HD. And
Sure.
my copy of it on the DVD is not the highest quality. You always talk about me not watching with subtitles. The DVDs don't have subtitles. If you
Like as an
buy The
option?
Good Place on DVD, they don't have subtitles.
That's
Because
wild.
you've said that a few times, and then now this time I was like, yeah, I do try to turn on the sub. They don't have them.
That's wild.
That is wild. That's like one of the points
That's
I
not
feel
very
like for a lot of
accessible.
people to get a DVD. It's not at all. But I think that is more telling of in the streaming era, they put a lot less effort into DVD box sets because people don't buy them. Eleanor has a lament about relationships that I think a lot of us feel, that, you know, you're so worried about it when you don't have one. And then when you do have one, that worry just turns into a worry that you're going to lose it one day. And I think in the early stages of a relationship,
Absolutely.
it's easy to
You
feel
feel
that
a
way.
lot of that.
And to get caught in that if you're a person that has those insecurities about yourself.
Yeah.
But Chidi, again, what a G. He says, well, I'm a world class. He says, hey, babe.
Sploosh.
Hey, baby, come on over here. I'm a world class warrior, but I want to focus on now. How about you and I just be here together now? And he uses a classic Tolstoy line about being here, being alive
Classic
in the now.
panty dropper, that Tolstoy.
Because it's the only time we have. And I try to have a healthy spoonful of that, to be aware of the impermanence of everything.
Yeah.
And to be happy in the present as much as I can. And Eleanor actually knows this line. She catches him and finishes saying the line with him. You would think it's because he had like taught it to her in a class, but it's to make a weird Tyra Banks meme account Instagram page joke. And Chidi says, well, now I hate it.
As an avid America's Next Top Model watcher, loved that reference.
Now, I've watched a ton of America's Next Top Waddle, totally different show.
A lot of penguin talk.
Then he brings up another quote. How about this one? From an attractive, occasionally very sweaty philosopher named Eleanor. You gotta try. Which he says, you know, you used it talking about saving the world, but I think it applies to relationships. You gotta try.
I love how earnest his eyes are, like looking at her in this scene. It's like, God damn.
I'm sure we've said it on here before, but are you aware of that when he auditioned for The Good Place, William Jackson Harper hadn't been getting work. He had been trying for a long time, and he had said to himself, if I don't book this, I'm going to quit acting and get a job. Like, I've tried it, I've done it, it's not bringing in money, it's time to get a job and make money. And then those natural, he's so good.
So good.
Chidi, much like a character like Jason, is both such a dialed-in performance that can be jokey and hammy when it needs to be, but can just sing in such a heartful way when it needs to as well. And you get a lot of it here.
It's great.
So he gives that speech, and Eleanor says, I have an idea, and you think the sweetness is going to continue, but no. It's time for Chidi and Eleanor in this timeline to canonically fuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
She says, I have an idea. I love Chidi's...
Great. What? Oh. Wait, I think I know. Well, I don't want to assume. What if we both write down what we think you mean?
What if we didn't?
And it's just, what if we didn't? And grabs him and they run up the stairs.
I love that.
Cute. It's a little sexy, but still wholesome. It's a very sweet moment. The two lovers run off to each other. And now the threads will start to combine as Tahani walks into Michael and asks him how it went. Michael, I like this line. He says, the Good Place guys are ineffectual dorks in fleece vests. The Titanic is sinking and they're writing a strongly worded letter to the iceberg.
Great line.
Really good writing. He's so convinced. The bad place is cheating. Why can't these people see it? And then Tahani says, okay, I know that's big. I'm doing something too. Can I ask you a question? It's unrelated. The fate of humanity is at stake and time is running out. But he does make time. And it's kind of a, yeah,
Tahani kind of makes like a cute little like pouty face at him.
And they're friends. And yeah, okay, what are you dealing with?
Tahani and Michael are friends. They bonded.
Yes, of course. So Tahani explains her situation and how she tries to help people and how she's just caused more pain than help in this time, even though she's doing things that she sees as good behavior. I think this sequence, which is of course bringing us into one of the big ideas of the last section of the show, it's so close to being really delicately done to plant the idea in Michael's head, but then I do think the writing is a little clunky for how directly Tahani speaks the idea. Just a little.
I can see that.
Just a tiny bit. Not enough for me to not give it. It just makes me feel that way because it's so close to pointing the idea in Michael's head in a very casual way, like they've done so many times with so many bits, but instead she just says straight up, there are so many unintended consequences to well-intentioned actions. It's like you're playing a game you can never win. I think it's just a little too textbook to sound of Tahani's stream
I'll
of
take that. I think that it could have worked if it was just, like you said, delivered a little bit more differently. I would have rather them let Jamila do like a few different reads of that and change it up a little bit and then take the one that felt the most natural. I think that would have been the move there, as opposed to sticking to what was very clearly written to directly tell Michael to re-examine his viewpoint.
Even if she had said clearly something more like, it's like every good thing I do makes bad things happen. And then Michael could be like, what if that's everybody? Because that's what they're doing here.
Yeah.
It's just that the way that she like textbook has a line about whatever. Michael says, you did it. And I love this. Tahani says, well, of course, darling, I did. Did what?
What did I do? That I loved that delivery.
Michael opens up the Book of Dougs, and we learn why this episode is called that. Because, yes, we've been focusing on Doug Forsett, but there are so many other regular guys named Doug that will prove his point that he's now seen. Because look at this. Pull up. 1534. A guy named Doug got 145 points for picking roses, giving them to his mom. She was happy. He got clean points. But in 2009, another guy named Doug also bought roses for his mom, gave it to her, she was happy, but he ended up losing points because of all of the complications in the modern society. Where did he buy the roses from? How were they grown? Who is growing them? Who gets the money for it? Why? All of this, and everything's tied into such a complicated ethical thought process that there is no pure good activity anymore because everything's caught up in like consumerism and everything's caught up in capitalism is what I kind of see in this. And Michael's put this together faster than Tahani because he says, you know, he buys the roses from this billionaire who sends his female employees pictures of his genitals. Woo!
Woo!
The bad place isn't tampering, obviously. It's been obvious to us for a while, but now Michael has had the curtain pulled for him. It's because the world's getting more complicated the longer it goes on, and people are being penalized for this. And being a good person gets harder because there are no pure good activities. So he leaves. He's got it all figured out. He's rushing back to the committee or to, I don't know if he goes to the committee or if he just goes to his friends. But Tahani's left alone to figure her thing out all alone. Well, I guess I'll solve it myself. Then Tahani walks out and finds Janet and apologizes to her for meddling. She just wants them to be happy. And Tahani, I kind of like that it's with Janet and not Eleanor, that she says, I love you to someone for the first time here. She's had her very touching moments with Eleanor, but here no, I love you. I want you guys to be happy. I love both of you guys. And it's earnest. And it makes Janet start crying for the first time in her life. Emotions aren't coming out of my butt, they're coming out of my eyes, which is somehow more embarrassing. And this is making Tahani cry. She's crying even though she's British and usually just walks backwards smiling and staring into the middle distance until she's alone.
Oh, that's funny.
Not in yours.
That extend wasn't in mine. It was just, I never cry. I'm British.
And she says, also unrelated, but the car bidding is really disgusting.
That's funny.
And then they cry and they hug. Jason steps in. He joins. Why are you crying? I like being a part of things. They cry. And weirdly, this touching moment becomes the catalyst for kind of the climax of this episode. Because Gwendolyn walks in and says, two humans and a neutral Janet crying in the good place? I've never been suspicious of anyone, but I think that's about to change. And Tahani could just say, no, don't be suspicious. She's about to explain it off. But just as that happens, another thing happens. Another door opens. And it's Eleanor and Chidi walking out. Eleanor announcing, well, we just had sex in the closet. Janet's like shaking her head, no, don't say that. And then Michael joins. He joins the group. And Gwendolyn starts coming at Michael.
Have you all been lying to me this whole time? That upsets me. I'm gonna try to shake my fist at you. Oh, gosh darn it.
That was really funny.
She wants to turn them into the judge. That's all she knows what to do, is to send you to the judge. But, and this is kind of a twist, Michael already did. And we don't quite know why. I already did. You don't have to. Everyone's like, what? You did? Then suddenly the portal opens, and our good friend the doorman comes back to remind us that he's still the same frog-loving cool guy.
Yeah.
He comes in and says, hey, your request to the judge was accepted. She'll meet you at the IHOP. Then he looks around. So, this is the good place. Kind of like when he went to Earth. Smells like frogs. Cool. Let's go. Jason says tight to go into the IHOP, but Michael warns them. The International Hole of Pancakes is the most dangerous place in the entire universe. I love how the IHOP joke was just like a throwaway in season 1 or the beginning of season 2, and now it's a literal place. Of course, they don't just say something in the good place. If they say there's an International Hole of Pancakes, that's going to be seen on the show sometime. It's Schrodinger's
Well, and I love
IHOP.
the idea that IHOP is the most dangerous place in the universe, because
I've seen some
have
shit
been
go down
multiple
at a-
shootings at the IHOP in our hometown.
Yeah,
So
it is a lawless place, it kind of feels like.
It's true.
No, they're not going for pancakes. They're going to save humanity. Then the episode ends on a joke, even though that's a big thing. We have the next thing. It's propelling it forward. I don't really think this is a transition episode. I think this is a really solid story that gets us from one thing. I think every episode is kind of a transition episode if you want to look at it that way. But it ends on a joke, which I think is so funny. They're going to go through the portal to see the judge. Chidi says, any chance I can change first? No. Cool. They all go through the portal, and the last thing we get is our last line from Gwendolyn. Bye, guys. Nice to meet you. Really, really long smile and wave. After they're gone, after she's had her entire belief system questioned, that's off her shoulder. She doesn't care anymore.
wait.
And
She's fine.
back to Gwendolyn life. And that's the episode. That's the Book of Doug's. I really like this episode. I like it more after talking about it. I like it more the more times I watch it. I think this is a solid, important season 3 episode.
I agree. I think it's really, really good. I think that it does a lot to reintroduce and kind of clearly lay out the overarching idea of the show and where they really dive into next season, but they're setting it all up so smartly and kind of letting us in on it. And I think it's really, really good. Great development with Chidi and Eleanor. Great Tahani.
A little
great Janet,
schmoopy.
great Jay. I love this episode, honestly.
We kept
Really high
saying so
score.
many times, wow, this is a great Michael episode. Oh my God, look at all the clever, small things Jamila Jamil gets to do as Tahani. Chidi's got a great schmoopy episode. Eleanor's got a great emotional episode. Jason
Janet's
gets
got
the
a
same
great-
funny one-liners in and continues the story with Janet. Janet's got a great episode. This is a great episode.
Great
We didn't even
episode.
really talk that much about Paul Scheer, who's really funny.
Who's great,
as one of
yeah.
the Good Place Commission people. It's a really good episode, and I have a similar feeling that I had to Janet's, where we started it like, is this as good as we thought it was? And it is. It's really, really good.
This one, I think, was way better than I remembered it being. Like I said, I remembered it as a transition episode, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And it's not the end of the season yet. We're ramping up towards the end of the season. It's crazy to think about. We'll get to our good place and bad place in a second, but it's crazy to think about. We're like 2 episodes away from season 4, and then we're 14 episodes away from done with this show that we've been podcasting for about a year now. I'm having so much fun on this ride. I hope you guys are too. Before we move on to a big episode for us, Chidi Sees the Time Knife, next week, let's close this chapter on the Book of Doug's by giving out our good place, bad place. I know who I'm giving the good place to. I'm not sure on bad place, so I'd like to hear yours.
I was
first.
pretty confident on both of mine. It was instantly in the episode right down. My bad place, and I don't like to do this all the time, but I couldn't just give it to one person, because I gave my bad place to the entire Good Place Review Committee. I think that their lack of urgency, their closed-mindedness, and their tunnel vision, and their holier-than-thou absolute correctness mindset is bad. And I think that they, as an institution, get the bad place for me this week.
Because it's such a good episode for all of the characters, I can maybe think of, like, it's not very nice, a little bit some of the stuff Tahani does, maybe some of how Janet reacts, puts everyone in danger, could get her some skew, but everyone has such a good episode that I am going to go a similar direction as you and give a more jokey answer. I'm going to give it to Kellen. He has a great showing in this episode, but Kellen did not fill out a request for his here, and that cannot be underlooked. It has to be punished swiftly. So 100 negative points to someone from the Good Place, Kellen. You say you hate to do that, but this is the first time we meet Good Place people, and they go to the Bad Place.
Yeah. I hate to give it to more than one person is what I hate to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair. I'm going to give my Good Place, I'll go ahead and say mine, that it's Tahani.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's done so much individual growth, and a big part of why she gets it for me is because none of this is how do I look? How does this affect me? What does this have to do with me? This is like, how can I be a better servant to other people? And that's huge. Even if you are causing these little negatives to happen, it's out of genuine, earnest drive to be a good person. She's going through her Eleanor arc. And like I said, she wants to be a better servant to those around her, to her friends, to make the world a better place in the best way possible. And for me, that's enough to give it to Tahani this week. But I think you're going to go a different direction.
No, I'm Tahani hands down.
I thought maybe you'd go Chidi.
No, I thought you were going to go Chidi because you mentioned Tahani as your honorable mentions for the Bad Place.
Just because in the start, there are a couple moments, but I didn't want to.
Well,
and
I even think those are Good Place earning moments for her because her only motivation was helping Jason and Janet. And then when that doesn't work, she goes to Michael and doesn't say Jason and Janet are overreacting. It's what can I do to help them? What am I doing wrong? Why are these things happening when I try? And I think it's a great Tahani episode. One of my favorites for sure. And even I think a better Tahani episode in terms of her growth and showing that maturity than the Fractured Inheritance. I think this is the Tahani post that interaction that now is at a place of acceptance in herself and comfortability that she can look past that and look forward. 'Cause even the moments where she's like, well, of course, darling. I think those are funny. I mean, she's like, well, is everyone as attractive as you? Well, no, they're not. No one looks like Tahani and Jason.
They've done, oh man, we cannot praise the writers enough. They've done such a good job of making these characters so specific that we know exactly why all of them didn't get into the Good Place, and then making them worthy of the Good Place without changing them, without changing their core. Tahani's always going to be a little vain. She's never going to not be able to name drop, but she wants to be better, and she knows now that she has to look to other people for that, and she can't just be her own thing. It's great. You're right. It's such a good, quiet. I'm not arguing with you. Tahani's mine too. Tahani is so great. And that's our Good Place, Bad Place for the Book of Dougs. A low-key sleeper contender for my top 5 episodes.
Yeah, really good.
Really solid. Really liked it. And like I mentioned, next week, Chidi Sees the Time Knife.
Woo!
It's the episode that gives our podcast its name. We're going to talk about that next week as we're getting closer and closer to wrapping up season 3 of The Good Place and closer and closer to one at a time announcing the 4 next options for our next Rewatch podcast. The first of those podcasts announcing the first of the 4 options is going to come out next month. So what's your speculation? What are your suggestions? What do you think Zachy Steve will be talking about next?
Is it a show that's featured on a wall behind us? Who knows?
Is it a show that's featured on a shirt on my tummy?
Who knows?
That's all coming up soon, but of course, always, we're focused on The Good Place, and we're going to be back next week to talk about Chidi Sees the Time Knife. And if you want to hear that episode early, head on over to patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. Patreon news to me just made it so where you can become a patron of an artist for free. So you could join our Patreon for free, not pay. You don't get all the paid content, but you make it look like we have more patrons, which honestly helps. Like if everyone that wants to became a free patron,
and you get snippets
it looked
of
like
Patreon only.
We had 20.
Content.
Yeah, you get free previews of every Patreon video and post and podcast that we do. So it's a great way to go check it out and to also boost our numbers for us without having to give us any money. It's a good way to support us. And if you want to give us a few bucks, starting at $5 a month, you get all the exclusive content. Every episode of this podcast early, every episode of Brokeback Bebop, season 3 before it premieres later this year or early next year. You get The Basement, or that 70s show rewatch, You Can't Disagree show. All the stuff is over there. And Steven, if they can't pay us or don't want to free Patreon subscribe, which I don't know why they wouldn't.
Some people have been banned from Patreon. Back before OnlyFans, when people put their butthole pics on Patreon, people got pretty handsy.
Our audience demographic does fall in that category.
In that brief window
heavily.
Of time. If you want to connect to us elsewhere, make sure you go and open up our Book of Dougs over on Twitter and Instagram. Go follow us at Time Knife Pod. We're also on YouTube. This is a great video one to watch. There's a lot of funny physical bits that Zach and I did throughout the episode. And if you want to see that, we did a lot of this one. I did like a zhoop thing. I don't know.
A lot of that.
Yeah. I like it.
A little bit.
Oh, wow. You look like a marlin.
Thank you. That's what I was going
Do you want to see Zach portraying Goopy giving fellatio?
If you want to see me deep throat Gooby's entire jar.
Can you fit Gooby in your mouth?
You shouldn't ask me
Sans
questions
jar.
like this.
Find
Get us
out
outta
that
here
more
before I do anything I regret.
Search the name of the show on YouTube. You'll find that and more fun stuff. But from inside the time knife, Black Lives Matter.
I'm Zach.
I'm Steven.
And we'll see you next week. We love you very much. Don't buy your mom any roses.
Think about the sweatshops. Think about underpaid migrant workers. Think of it.